Now welcome, I found this on the acoustic guitar forum. Still tripping over a chord after 40 years. Man, please tell me I'm not alone in this. I've been playing guitar since 1977, but the B minor still trips me up. And someone else is replying, me too, I still struggle with B minor after playing for 58 years. This needs to stop right now. Well, next to the actual B minor bar chord here, there are alternatives. There are many of them. There are solutions you might have never heard of, so have a look. Now, before I show you the alternatives, this is the B minor bar chord that we're talking about here on the 2nd fret. And this is actually coming from A minor if you don't see it yet. This will be A minor with its common fingering, right? And if you do it like so, that you free the index finger here, and then you shift it up 2 frets, and put the index finger across all strings on the 2nd fret, that will be your B minor bar chord. Now, if you're still struggling with bar chords, just a few tips here. Make sure this joint is in front of the neck here, because if you have it like so, you can't get that index finger straight enough for bar chords. So you have to push your forearm just a tiny bit forward to get that finger straight, then have it very close to the fret wire here, especially this one. Keep an eye on this one here, have it very close to the fret wire to get that clean sound that we want, right? And also you can add like the low E string to that chord, but you don't need to, it's not necessary. Also make sure if you press on it, that is actually twofold, so you have 2 sources of power here. The first one is like pressing on it with your thumb and your fingers, right? But to make that a bit easier, you hang on the guitar neck here, so you pull back your arm just a tiny bit to help those fingers out here. Also make sure that your guitar is upright. If you have it like so, it's really hard to reach around the neck. Now the first alternative looks pretty much the same, but there's a tiny detail that makes a huge difference. So have a look. This would be the bar chord, right? But instead of barring this, I just press on the fingertip here, so on the A string. Then I have the rest of the fingers, and then the high E string, I touch that lightly so that this one is muted actually. And I also mute that low E string by touching it with the index finger. In this way I make sure that I can happily strum all strings. Now the second version is an easy version. It still looks the same, right? But we only play those 3 notes here. And the rest is like muted with the index finger. So you touch lightly all strings. You don't press on it with the index finger, you just press with those 3 fingers. And what you get is that. That's the alternative number 2. It's not ideal sound-wise, it's a bit thin, it lacks of a real bass note, but it could be an option here and there for someone. Now before I show you more alternatives, let's have a look at a common scenario where you use B minor. So usually when you play B minor in a song, there's also a D major in it, because D major and B minor, they belong to the same key. So if you have a song like in D minor, it's very likely that there is a B minor in it. And if you have a song in B minor, it's very likely that there's a D major in it. So that means if we practice that chord transition here, that makes sense, right? So that will be worth it for many songs. Now, the problem here is we have the ring finger on the 3rd fret B string for D major, right? Do you see that? And then for B minor, we have the very same spot here, but with the middle finger, so a different finger. So what would you say if we could use like the same finger? That would make things easier, right? So let's see. We could play like D major like so. We have that middle finger here, 3rd fret, and then like a mini bar here on the bottom 3 strings with the index finger. That's our D. And then you keep that middle finger. You only have to extend that bar here, and you put those on the fretboard here. So how cool is that? No matter if you play in D major or in G major, it's very likely that there's a chord change from G to B minor or back, or both. Let's have a look at that. So what I see with what a lot of my students do is they have the thumb up for G major, which is totally fine. I do that myself too. But then for B minor, you can't keep it up here, because if you do, you have no chance barring that. So you have to bring it down, and if you do that, if you don't do it, or if you do it too late, you're too late with your chord shape, right? So you have to do it. This is one of the first things that you have to do for your chord change here. Do you see how quickly I have my thumb down here when I go to B minor? So this is worth having an eye on. And the second thing here, consider having a different fingering maybe for G major, at least for the song that you want to play where that B minor is in. Because if you play, for example, this G major fingering here with the ring, middle and little finger here, there's a lot of change when you go to B minor then. So you have that G and you go over there, there's a lot of change going on. If you have a fingering for G where the index finger is on the 2nd fret A string. This one, for example, is very common. You have that index finger on the very same spot here, so that is a smoother transition. And another likely situation is changing from A major to B minor, that back and forth. If you're following my channel, you know that chord with that A major chord. So there are a ton of different fingerings for A major out there. If you do it like so with the index, middle, ring finger, there's a lot of change if you go to B minor and this back and forth. Or if you do it with the middle, ring, and little finger, which is what a lot of people do, again, there's a lot of change. But if you do it like so, if you bar those 3 strings here, G, D, G, and B string, there's not much going on when you go to B minor, right? Because you bar the very same fret here. Let's move on with the alternatives. So 2nd fret high E string, and then 3rd fret with the middle finger next one, and the next 2 on the 4th fret. This is more of a lighter sounding chord, and if you want to strum that, if you want to strum all strings, you have to mute the top 2 strings here, like with the thumb, the top string, and then the next one with the ring finger here. And I think for strumming it's not ideal because it's that light sound. It doesn't have a real bass note, so that would be not ideal for most players, I think, but maybe for some finger picking if you want to keep it on the light side. So there's a 4th alternative using open strings. So let's see if we can build a B minor somewhere here. So we need B, D, and F sharp. We have a D string, that's cool. We have a B string, that's cool too, so we use those two, right? Let's see, on the A string we have that 2nd fret, which is a B. We have that D string, cool. And now we have the G string. That's a bit of a problem because the next note that we could use would be that B here on the 4th fret, which would make that fingering very wide. So let's skip that for now. We have the B, D, we have the B string, cool. And on the high E on the 2nd fret, we have F sharp. So we have B, D, B, and F sharp. Cool, that's a B minor. But still, we can't strum that chord because the G string is open. If we have that 2nd fret here on the G string, that would add the note A to it, which would make it a B minor 7 chord. Sounds like so. Now you only have to ask yourself, do you like that sound of that chord voicing here? Is that something for you? And second question, does it suit your song? There's one more that I want to show you, and who would have thought that there are so many? If you need any help with your guitar playing, then check out highguitar.com where you can get one-on-one lessons. I understand how frustrating it is to be enthusiastic about guitar playing but not know where to start or what to do next. And that's why every month I help dozens of people just like you to learn guitar quickly, and I'd love to do the same for you. Now let's see, the last one is actually another bar chord which is coming from E minor. You know your E minor here, right? And if you do it like so, that you have your ring finger and little finger on the fretboard, you shift it up to the 9th fret, and then you put your index finger across all strings here on the 7th fret. That will make a B minor too, but there's a problem. If you want to play that back and forth with your open chords, that's a lot of traveling on the fretboard here. So I'd say give all those a try. If there's one thing that I learned from doing YouTube so far is that we're all very different. We're all guitarists. We all like that beautiful instrument here, but we like some fingerings and we don't like others. You have to find the one that is right for you, that is right for the musical situation, and then you can practice it. If you're still struggling with bar chords, then watch my approach. It's gonna change your view entirely. Enjoy.